Hello everyone, thank you all for joining today. We will just get started in a minute.
Hello everyone, thank you all for joining today.
All right. Thank you all, everyone who has come to attend the session, the second session of this webinar series, how to write a literature review paper for a high impact factor journal. So this is me, Vidhi Poddar. If you are attending this session, my webinar for the first time, I would like to let you know that this is the second session of this series. You can check out the first session that I conducted last Sunday, and link to that will be posted in this video description later on. So this is a 5 series session webinar. There will be 5 different sessions running every Sunday. Today is the second one, and I will be taking you through all the steps required to write a good systematic literature review paper. So I have broken down these sessions into 5. I have broken down this webinar into 5 sessions because the idea is that we will cover one section of your research paper in each of the sessions. So last week we started off with abstract and we did a bit of introduction. Today we will work a little bit more on the introduction, plus move on to the core part, the second part of the paper, which is how to write a literature review for a systematic literature review paper. So this is sometimes confusing for people or young researchers. So I will clarify that today, and that would be the main theme of today's session. I need to show this disclaimer, so I will not repeat it because I have mentioned it in the earlier videos. Okay, so today's session is divided into 3 sections, section 1, 2, and 3. And as you can see, this is the layout or the order of the things that we will be doing today. Okay, so I have reviewed the feedback that you gave. Thank you all very much, by the way, for giving such a fantastic feedback. So based on the feedback I received, I have kind of introduced some topics in today's session to cover up what was suggested to me in the feedback. So we will go through types of systematic literature review papers. What are the main steps in doing literature review? Why do you need a literature review section in a systematic literature review paper? Do you need a new SLR? That is the first question that you have to ask before even venturing into doing this, writing a paper. So that is going to be the first section. The second section is going to be a number of case studies, and the idea here is that I want to show you a couple of case study, a couple of systematic review papers, and discuss the structure, discuss their writing, discuss some of the things that they have done, which you could incorporate in your paper. So that is the section 2. And the third section of this of today would be where you will apply the things that are discussed in section 1 and section 2 to start writing your literature review paper. So that is the overall layout for today's session. So response to the feedback. So overall, I received, I think, 86 feedbacks from all of you. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm very glad to see some really positive feedback. I was very surprised to read all your feedback, and some I've only highlighted some here. Those that made me happy, to be frank. Yeah, so I really enjoyed reading your feedback. There were some constructive comments as well in the feedback that you have given. So the first column on this one is the feedback that you provided, and this is my response to your feedback. Okay, so there was some feedback on provide some more guidelines for introduction, so we will do that today. How to develop abstract and introduction before research. So this was a bit confusing for some people, but like I said in the last session, abstract is an evolving document. So you can start off with something that you have now and then progress and develop it as you go further. How to review and what's important to review. So we will cover this in session 3. So not today, next Sunday. How to explain results better. So this will be covered in the upcoming session. So specific, I think probably in the last or the second last session. Time for audience questions. So this was very useful. Whoever gave this feedback, thanks for that. So I have added 3 Q&A slots in today's session, 10 minutes each. So you can ask the questions in those sessions and I will try to answer them. What I would also recommend all of you is if you could ask those questions on the community website so that I can answer them if I do not get to finish all your questions in 10 minutes. What happens is if you ask the question in the YouTube chat, it just disappears after a while and it is very difficult to find those chat questions from the chat. So, but if it is on the community, it will be easier for me to find an answer. Content of the next session. So I will share that on the community as well as I will show it today. So there were some questions, feedback on techniques and tools. So database research to filter papers. So how to use a database to filter papers. I think we will do a bit of it this session, but today's will be limited to finding existing literature review papers. That's how we will use the database research today. In the next session, we will do it more for finding the papers. Zotero related issues, I think I cannot handle this one-on-one, so I suggest you check out on YouTube or connect with the people in the community and ask them for help. I think they will definitely be there to help you out. How to search good quality journal. This can be done using Shimago, and I will see if I can cover this in today's session. If not, definitely in the session 3. Assessing articles from different databases. So I'll show you today Web of Science and Scopus. Tools for graphs and charts. Yeah, we will provide as we go. Comparative SLR between 2 concepts. This was a question which was quite interesting. So I thought, if you really need to compare 2 different concepts and find out the study, then you can definitely do this. However, it may also be interesting to do 2 separate SLRs on those topics, and if the comparison is not necessary. Software installation, again, similar thing. Try to use YouTube or other resources. Feedback on session delivery. Some of you wanted it to be more hands-on, so I have introduced some activities today. Practical examples. This will be covered in the case studies that I have added in today's session. Pick some examples from humanities. I will try to do that. I think I have got one case study today, which I have I think it is from humanities. I'm not really sure. But if you suggest me something, I'm happy to take that on. Examples on how to write paper, we'll be doing this. Some of you said that it is a long session, so today I will try to stick to 3 hours, the session is supposed to be long because the kind of content that I'm sharing with you, it can't be done in any quicker way. But it is up to you to attend it at your own pace as well. The videos are there on YouTube for you to check it at a later stage. Increase teaching speed. Yeah, I will try to do that wherever possible, and slow down whenever it is required, because the intention is not to speed up things, but my intention is for me to share what I know at the right pace so that everyone can understand. Audio sharing with participants. This will not be possible in this webinar, but we will arrange different sessions maybe after we complete this series. There was a question about privacy or confidentiality of your research. So if you are not comfortable sharing your abstract or introduction, please email me at contact@vidhipoddar.com. I can have a look, but I cannot guarantee that I will reply to all your questions individually. Sessions on PhD topics. Check out my YouTube video. There I have more than 10 videos, I think, on different aspects of PhD. Minimum number of papers to cite. I think we will cover some aspect of this in today's session in the case studies. Word limit, it depends upon different journals and conferences. Community registration issues, yeah, this has come up quite a lot. And I think what has happened is because my domain name is new, because my email address is new, it does not have a strong reputation with the ISPs or internet service providers. So many a time it is possible that the email from the community has gone to your spam folder, or if you are using Gmail, it may have gone to the promotions folder. So please check there if you find that email, and I feel it is most likely that it is good. It would be there. How can I reach you if I have some questions? So I'm available on the community to help you to the best of my capability. But I also work full time, so I can only spare a limited amount of time. But I'll try to best answer all possible queries that I can. Okay, so the series, that is the 5 sessions in total, this is the outline of what is coming in the future. I mean, the future sessions. So we will do advanced database search, plagiarism management, how to search good quality articles, keyword selection strategy, writing methodologies section, synthesizing your literature analysis, developing a knowledge map, writing discussion and limitations, writing future work, and finishing your first draft of your systematic literature review. So if you see the way these contents, the series is structured, is to take you through that whole process of writing a complete literature review paper. So it is long because this can't be done any quicker, I think. I mean, if I try to do it any quicker, the quality will definitely will go down. So if you can spend this like it's only 15 hours over 5 weeks, I think it is a reasonable time that you should commit for your research. Okay, so this is the sections. This is what we are going to start now. And I want to keep a tab of my time so that I finish it on time. So I've got a record to keep here of how much I'm progressing with. Okay, so let's begin with section 1. So based on your feedback, one of the things that some of you wanted was explain a little bit more about the systematic literature review. So I'm going to do that now. So systematic literature review papers, there are many different types of systematic literature review papers, as you can see in this slide. So there are domain-based reviews, there are theory-based reviews, method-based reviews, and meta-analyses. So it is in this session, what my focus is going to be on structured reviews. Okay, so later you can study these different types of reviews if you like. Some papers I have published which are kind of in these categories as well. So you are happy to review those papers to get an understanding of what different types of papers are or look like. So basically a structured review paper, the objective of that review paper is to review the recent literature in a 5-year, 10-year period, 10-year span, and come up with a categorization of literature or coming up with a knowledge map. Analyze the literature, synthesize some new ideas, and try to solve 1 or 2 research questions. So that is a structured review. There are other reviews which are called framework-based reviews. So 2 examples are here, ADO and 6W framework. So there are some papers that if you search with these keywords, you may find them as well. The third category is that of a bibliometric review. And a bibliometric review is more quantitative. So basically we will we will do a very large search for papers in a specific field, and we report a lot of quantitative information, like how many papers were published in a specific area, how many um, where are these authors from, which countries, which universities, who are the leaders in this space. So all that kind of information is identified and represented in a review paper, in a bibliometric review paper. So such review papers comprise a lot of graphs and beautiful charts and figures and network diagrams. So it's also an interesting type of review, but we are not doing this in this session, in this series. And then you have hybrid review. So hybrid reviews is a mix of structured reviews, what we are going to do, plus a bibliometric review. So normally such papers begin with bibliometric review, but at a shorter scale, not as detailed or thorough as just a bibliometric review paper. And then they move on to a structured review. Next type of a paper is, say, theory-based review. Others are method-based review and meta-analysis based review. So I will not go through all of this in detail, but the reason I put them here is for you to know that these types of papers exist, and for you to do some research on your own if you're interested in these types of papers. So for example, I have this slide shows some of my papers which belong to these categories. So I have a structured review paper, for example, which was recently published, which is Prosumer Communities and Relationships in Smart Grids, a literature review, evolution, and future directions. So for those who want to check this paper out, I want to give you some background information about this paper, so you can assess the kind of quality that is possible in a given amount of time. So this paper was done with my my master's dissertation student. So these are master's coursework students, and they have 1 semester of research. So this is a result of the work that was done over a 3 months period. Okay. When you read through this article, you will understand the kind of depth or quality that is achievable in a 3 months time period. Similarly, the next paper that was just recently accepted was accepted in a Q1 journal, Decision Support System in Construction, a bibliometric analysis. So this is for those who want to see what is a bibliometric type of review. Next, we have theory development reviews. And what this means is we do literature review first. After that, based upon the literature review, we come up with a theory, a model, or something that is based upon the findings of the literature. So if you look at the first paper, which is a process model for identifying online customer engagement patterns on Facebook brand pages. So this is a paper where we reviewed the literature. This was reviewed not in a systematic review format, but a traditional literature review. But then based on that, we came up with a theoretical model. Similarly, the next paper is also similar, literature review and a model. And the third paper, Wireless Sensor Network Transport Protocol, this was purely a literature review paper. So if you want, you can review these papers as we later on. So that will give you an idea of what kind of work is possible. I also found one paper, this one, which is called a Typology of Reviews, an analysis of 14 review types and associated methodologies. So this is not an open access paper, so I cannot share the whole paper here, but I have got the link here. So anyone who has an access to Wiley publisher, you can download this paper and read this. So it is a review article of different types of review articles that you can write. Okay. I'm actually not looking if you have asking any questions or not, but we will limit the take the questions later. Yeah, as per the plan. So now let's move on to the next part of this session, which is systematic literature review main steps. So again, this is because of the feedback that I received from you all. I have added this in today's session. I found this very interesting article or a website from umd.edu. You can see the link at the bottom here. And this shows in a very interesting and a graphical way what are the main steps in literature review. So based upon these two things and based upon my own experience, I have highlighted, I have created these in blue, the process basically, you know, what are the main steps in a systematic literature review. So we begin with identifying a question, and it could be as simple as creating a knowledge map for your field, or it could be a specific question. Like in my case, what I want to study in this for this paper is the create a knowledge map of marketing and blockchain, or advertising and blockchain. After that, so that is the first question. Then we decide what is the inclusion and exclusion criteria. And this is kind of a protocol that you have to decide on how you are going to conduct your research, which papers you are going to include, which you are going to exclude, and why. So that is the research protocol. Using this protocol, then you search studies and then use the protocol to select the studies based upon that criteria. So these steps we will do in the next session, which is next Sunday. Extract data from studies using spreadsheet. Again, in the future sessions, we will cover this. Evaluate the risk of bias in selected studies. Present your results, write your discussion, and publish your work. So basically, those are the kind of steps, broad steps, when you can think in terms of a literature review paper. So if you think from your perspective, or what authors do, you begin here, identify the issue, write a plan for a review, which is a protocol that is defining these things, search for the studies, sift and select studies based upon your selection criteria or inclusion exclusion criteria, extract data from studies, assess the quality of studies, combine the data, which is synthesizing your literature, discussions and conclusions, and the outcome is a systematic review, which you then disseminate in a journal or a conference. From a layout of a systematic review, so this is what you can see will be the layout. You start with an abstract title, abstract, plain language summary, background. So this is kind of what we started doing in the last session. Methods. The one thing that is not mentioned here, and many a times some authors prefer to include this in the introduction itself, is what are the existing systematic review studies that are there in the literature. But I prefer to keep it as a separate section, which is why I have dedicated this whole session today on just that bit, because that kind of helps you to justify the reason, justify doing your systematic review. Then we move on to methods, where we explain our systematic review methodology, protocol, research protocol, inclusion exclusion criteria, do the search, collect the data, sift through the data, and so on. Next phase is on results, where we describe the findings or critically analyze the literature and synthesize the literature and write up. Discussion, future work. Does it say future work implications? Okay, this one does not say a section on future work, but traditionally a good literature review paper should at least have 1/3 of the paper of future work, because that is also the main contribution of your literature review. When you do a systematic review, there are many frameworks that you can apply. Some of you might be familiar with some common frameworks like PICO and SPIDER, but in fact, there are a number of different types of frameworks and which are suitable for different disciplines. The reason I'm showing this here is if you see the last column, you can see that if you are using this framework, it could be used for this discipline or this area. So psychology, management, policy, social work. So these are some of the frameworks, and these are the associated papers. The link is here, and I will also copy all these links that I'm using in this presentation in the YouTube description. So please do check that out. For it will be easy for you. So there are some more like PEO, PCoder, PESICO, PICO, PICO Plus, and PICOG, PISO, PICOT, PIPO, PROFE, SPICE, SPIDER, WWH. So there are many different types of frameworks that you can use while doing the study, while doing your systematic literature review. All right. The next part, and which is probably the important part for today's session, is to understand why do you need a literature review section in your systematic literature review article. Okay. So many a times, new researchers are kind of confused when they hear that you need a literature review section in a literature review paper. So let me break that down for you. Basically, what we are looking for is when we want to start doing a new literature review paper, we have to ensure that nobody has done a similar work in the past. Okay, because we don't want to duplicate, replicate, or waste our own time doing a similar study which is already out there for people to review or use. In some disciplines, like in medicine, there is a proper protocol where you are required to register your systematic literature review before you begin. So which means that if you are going to start your literature review, you can go and check on this list to see if anyone is already doing a systematic review on that topic. If they are doing it, then you don't need to waste your time doing that, because they have already registered and then they are going to do it. But this is not the case in all other disciplines. Okay, so it makes sense to search for existing systematic reviews in your discipline and find out what they have done. Okay, so if I were to search blockchain and cybersecurity, for example, I'm pretty sure that somebody would have done something on that topic. But that does not mean that I cannot do it again. So what you need to do in the literature review section of a literature review paper is to find out what they have done, whether it is really good. Is it something that is missing from what they have done? Can you do it better? Can you broaden the scope of the research or narrow the scope of that research to pick up a small specific niche and do a review on that? So when I made this slide, I was thinking, how would it be easier for you to understand this whole process? So let's look at some of these questions. So when you're thinking about the need for doing a systematic review, ask this question first. Who else has published a systematic review in your discipline on a topic or on a problem that you are trying to work on? So that is the first step. This could be easily done using Google Scholar, Web of Science, Scopus, any other ProQuest, any other database that you have access to or that you use. What was their main question or questions? So this is another way to distinguish your review compared to that of theirs. So if the domain is same, if the area is same, so whatever your topic, so blockchain and cybersecurity, if the topics are the same, the question is what can distinguish or differentiate your review from somebody from the existing review. So look at the questions very carefully. And in today's session, during the case studies, we will be doing this. I have highlighted some literature reviews and picked up the questions from that, so you can see and evaluate yourself. How much literature did they cover? Okay, so is it they covered 100 papers, they covered 50 papers, or did they cover 500 papers? So that is also a distinguishing criteria that will distinguish your study compared to others. How long ago was it conducted? Maybe it was conducted 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and in that time frame, 5 to 10 years, the literature or that area has progressed quite a lot, and that is a very good reason to do a review. And finally, a very subjective option is how thorough was it? What was the quality of that review? If you can assess the quality of that review and you realize that no, I think I can do a better job than this, then that could be another reason as well. So think very carefully before starting to write your literature review, that these are some of the important things that you need to cover. Okay, part 4 of today's session is, do you need a new systematic literature review? How to search databases for existing reviews in your field and evaluate the need. And you can, once you've done that, you can store this information in Excel. So I will show that now. Okay, so I'm going to play 2 videos. One video that shows the process of doing this in using Web of Science, and the another one using Scopus. So just give me 1 minute to set this up to play these videos.
How to search existing literature review papers. I will show this on Web of Science. So let's search blockchain literature review as a keyword. Once we search that, you see there are a lot of papers that are published in 2020, 2019, 2018.
I would select the review papers, which are 85, and define them. Once I do that, I can see those 85 results. I can export them to Excel. I can select all records from 1 to 85, and select full record. Click export. Once you open the Excel spreadsheet, there will be a lot of columns. A lot of them would not be required for us, so we will hide them or disable them. What we are interested in is, at this stage, mostly is just the title of the paper, because we want to ensure that if we are going to start writing a review or a systematic literature review, nobody has written a systematic review on that particular topic. So that is the main reason to first download all the systematic literature review papers. Next, what we want to do is search a specific keyword, say marketing, because previously we only searched very broadly on blockchain. But now we are searching to see something more specific, if anything exists. So when I search marketing as an extra keyword, I get 7 results. And of those 7 results, there is no paper that is talking about blockchain and marketing. So what that gives me an idea is I can use that as a topic for my research. Now let's see some other features of Web of Science. We can also use citation reports. It's something very interesting feature in Web of Science that we could use. It shows the number of citations each paper has received, or the most popular papers in a particular space. So that could be something useful that you can report or mention in your systematic review paper as well. You can download this as an Excel sheet and look at the results in more detail. Again, here a lot of things are not really required. So those that are required, we can use it in our reports. The next thing is, how can we analyze these search results? So there's a button called Analyze Results on Web of Science, which you can use. In here, on the left side, you can see a lot of categories like publication year, document types, organization, funding agencies, authors, source titles, and so on. So whenever you click on any of these, you can it shows you the results in this fashion. For example, publication years, 2020, document types, we have selected only reviews, organization, so this shows different universities who are doing research in this space, source titles are which journals where these papers are published, countries where the papers are published, which countries, in which languages these papers are published, what are the main research areas, and so on. So that's all in Web of Science. You can use all this information and include that in your paper. Thank you. How to search exists.
Okay, so I think you saw the Web of Science video. There was some background music, so I think I've removed that now. And I hope that will not be an issue in the next one. This video, I'll probably also put it separately as an independent video on YouTube itself for you to check it out. Basically, what I wanted to show you in this is for you to search the literature review papers from a database like Web of Science, and how you can download that information. But for the future reference, also having a to look at the citation analysis option of Web of Science could be helpful for you to put some kind of graphs or charts in your review paper, which looks quite interesting. So now I want to play another video which is on doing search on Scopus. So just give me 1 minute to set that up. So this video, actually I'm not speaking anything, so it is just a video with the music and some notes on it. So I'll have the background music playing. Okay, so that was the video on doing the search using Scopus. And what I wanted to show in that video is once you have downloaded the Excel spreadsheet, you can, if the results are too long, you can filter those results and look for specific keywords such as survey, literature review, systematic, and so on. Because many a times what may happen is if you, although you search for a specific, although you select review articles when you filter the papers on Scopus, some papers may come which may or may not be review articles. So it is always a good practice to filter these and kind of see the results that you get in this case. Okay, so I will open up the session for questions for 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, I suggest you post them on the community and I can check them so that I could answer your questions. Okay, so I'm starting to get few questions. Can somebody help me to copy these questions to the community for community as well, so that if I don't answer them now, I can at least answer them later. Okay, so let me take questions now. Nice videos, comprehensively covered the researching of different databases. Okay, thanks, Hannah. Jay Sharma is asking, can you difference between survey paper and literature review paper? So I think what I covered, I think I probably discussed this earlier as well, is a survey paper or a literature review paper and a systematic literature review paper, or a traditional literature review versus a systematic literature review. The difference there, we can think of a few differences. One is that in systematic literature review, you publish your protocol of how you are going to find the papers from your literature, from the existing literature. Whereas in a traditional literature review, we do not specifically mention such a how we have selected papers. It could be based upon the experience of the researchers, but it can be kind of more subjective. Whereas in a systematic review, it is more objective. Secondly, so that is one major difference between a survey paper and a literature traditional and a systematic literature review paper. And the other thing is, in a systematic review, we expect more than one author, multiple authors, to ensure the quality of the survey of the review. Whereas in traditional literature review, this may or may not be the is not considered as a requirement, but we still see people, there are co-authors in traditional literature review papers as well. So that is the kind of the main or core difference. Rashinda, do I need to create an account to use Web of Science or Scopus? So these two platforms are not free platforms. So if your university has access to it, you can have it. I don't know whether you can buy it personally as an individual user, but most universities do have these platforms. Alternatively, you can try ProQuest. ProQuest allows you to search for information from their database, but it is not very convenient to download that, like select all and download relevant publications or citations. So most of these things are not free, which is why in the last session, in the first session, I mentioned that my focus would be on Google Scholar, because that is open to everyone. Yeah, even Santwana, yeah, it's the same thing. So for Web of Science and Scopus, you would need access to those platforms. Yeah, Hina, I think we will be discussing more on the keyword selection strategy in the next session. In today's session, what I wanted to cover was, if you are doing literature, how you should identify existing literature review papers. So the focus was on using the term literature review with your research area. When we are going to your research question, we will have a different keyword strategy, which I will discuss next Sunday. Okay, Sati, your question is, while writing literature review paper, I have to read all reference paper mentioned in the base paper. While writing literature review, I have to read all reference paper No. You're not necessarily required to read all the papers in the reference list. But if you think some of them are relevant and they catch your interest and they're interesting, you may read. But when we begin a systematic review, which I'll cover more in the next session, is how you can identify the relevant literature by reviewing title and abstract of the of these papers. Hilda asks, are the papers that we analyze have to state in the list of references? Yes, you would need to. All the papers that you include in your systematic literature review should be listed, have to be listed in your review, in your reference list. Rodrigue asks, can we use a mix of scientific articles and technical reports from international organizations? Yeah, definitely you can. And depending upon where you publish, maybe first thing is to check with the journal whether they accept literature from other sources other than journals or not. And I think, like I mentioned in the last session, if you do include non-academic literature, it would be good to make it in a separate section, like a gray literature or something like that, and that would be a way that in case the journal does not like the gray literature, you can just remove that bit of your paper. And Rodrigue, I think I remember reading your abstract that you wrote. I think I checked it yesterday, and it was really well written. So congrats. Vinci, your question, can we use the same search strategy that has been done by another review for different research question? Yeah, I think the search strategy is more or less similar. I mean, it is a process. The only thing that kind of changes in the search strategy is your keyword combinations. So the keywords you would have to come up using some of the frameworks that I mentioned earlier on, or through your own knowledge within that area. So there's no issue using that. Janatul, your question is it necessary to use theoretical framework in a systematic literature review? So like I said today, if you are using a structured review, you don't really need to rely on a framework. But if you're going to do a framework-based review, then you could use some of the existing frameworks within your area, within your discipline. Okay, I've got 1 more minute to take the questions. And I'm taking this question from the community, which is posted by Biju. And the question is it possible to have a free login ID for Scopus or Web of Science from outside the institution? I was not able to get an ID to search the literature. Yeah, so Biju, I'm really not sure, because I was never in that situation where I had to look for an access, because my university provides access to these services. So I think it might be just a bit of a research for you to figure out whether that is possible or not. Okay, I think that was the only one question that was there on the community. So those whose questions I could not take right now, I would suggest you post that on the community, and I'll get back to you on that. All right, so I think after this we will take a 5 minutes break, and then we will begin again.
Today, I want to show you how to use the community using the mobile app. To access the mobile app, you need to download Mighty Networks from Apple Store or through Play Store. Once you download Mighty Networks, search for our community, Vidhi Poddar, and join. Once you join the community, you will see an interface like this. Here at the very bottom, you can chat with other members in the community. You can add a new post. You can check your notifications to the bell icon, and you can check your profile. You can also add the post from up here. I'll just do a sample post to show how this works. Once you've done that, click post. It will ask you whether you want to add a tag. You can add many of the tags. Let's say, let's add research. And you can see the post is now live. You can comment on the post. You can like the post. The same thing can be done from here to the plus icon. It will again take you back to the same thing. You can create a few other things, like you can ask a question, you can create an event, or you can create an article. So if you want to create an article which is available to all the members, it's fairly straightforward as creating a post. You need to give a title, new article, and then start writing the article. That's it. Once you've done that, click post. Again, it will ask you to pick a topic. You can say research or any other topic that is relevant, and post. You will not see this message. This is only for the host. It will say your article is live. Now here you can see, I can see two notifications here. If I click on that, I can see my notifications. I'll not go through that in this video. Up at the top, you can see these three lines. This gives you the option to discover or discovery, members, topics, groups, events, and settings. So let's go to discovery. Discovery is a place where you will see all the information that the host has put, that is I have put here. So there's featured posts or events that I have listed here. There are upcoming events, top members. These are automatically selected here depending upon who is active on the community. You can see all different types of topics, and you can follow these topics if they are of your interest. Members near you is a very interesting feature of this app. It shows you the members who are close to you geographically. So maybe in the same city or maybe in the same suburb. Okay, let's go back. If you click on members, it will show you different members in this community. Topics. These are all the different topics that are created on this community. You can follow them. And when you are creating a post or an article, you can select any of these topics to tag your article or your post. In the events tab, you can see any upcoming events that have been posted here on the community. Similarly, there are different groups that we can create. So far, I have only created 2 groups. If you think you want to create a group and manage a group on the community, please let me know, and I can create that group for you. So I have created one group called Shut Up and Write. This is created by, this has been created by, on the request of one of the members. So yeah, that's pretty much of these features. You can go to your personal profile, go into personal settings. You can check your account. You check notifications here. You can get your email updates for any changes that happen on the community whenever anyone posts, or you can deactivate that. You can even get these notification pushed onto the mobile app. So it will, you'll be notified on the app. Plus, there are many different types of notifications that you can see, and you have complete control of what kind of notifications you want and what kind of notifications you do not want. So you can enable and disable them as you prefer. It's up to you. You can even edit your profile, add a cover photo, add a mini bio, put some links to your website or LinkedIn account or anything of that sort. Also give an introduction about yourself. And I recommend that you do put the introduction because that will help you and others to find you. And also the location feature is very important if you want to connect locally with other researchers. The other option that you can see here is the option to invite. And this is when you can send out an invitation to other researchers. Maybe they are your friends or they're doing PhD with you or anyone else you think would benefit from this network. And you can just add multiple email addresses here and the invites would be sent straight away. You can also share the link for this community on your social network so that they can directly click on the link and join. Once you invite members and they join, you can become a bronze level member, a silver level member when you invite 10 or more, or when 10 or more members join after your invitation, and you become a gold member when you refer and 25 members join the community. There will be specific advantages and benefits for these 3 levels, and I will be sharing those in the near future. So that's pretty much, it's very easy to use app. So I recommend all of you to download this app from the App Store and start using it. It is a very easy and convenient way to connect with researchers on the community. It will be, you'll be connected throughout the time. All right, that's it. I wanted to share this with you, and I hope you all get onto this app. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move on. We're going to the next section of today's session, and that is to review a few literature review papers to see how they write different sections of their paper. So it will be very useful for you, so because you can now relate to these different sections because this is what you are going to be writing as well. So before I go ahead, could you please confirm that you all can hear me clearly? Seems like there is some issue with my mic today. Just let me know that you can hear me all right. Okay, let me log out and then try this again. Just give me a minute. Okay, could you see if this is any better? Is the sound any better now? Is the sound good, guys? Okay, I think it is all right. I'm using my wireless headphones now, so I guess the quality probably is better. All right, so let's move on. Ramesh Krishnan, I think the problem is due to having two systems nearby. Probably that is the case because I have two laptops, one next to the other. But I had the same setup last time as well. Last time was not an issue. Anyway, let's go. I think you all can hear better now, so let's move on. We're already running a bit over time. Okay, so the first paper that I have taken for today's case study is a mini review published in Computational and Structural Biotechnology Journal. It is an open access paper. So if you search this title, you should be able to get that paper. So in the case studies section, I have only selected open access paper. So it will be easier for everyone to get access to it. Okay, so this is kind of a multidisciplinary topic paper. So it is talking about blockchain as well as biomedical area. All right, so let's look at this part here on the left. It's the title, and what I want to show here is the abstract. So like last week, we did a similar exercise where I looked at the existing use abstract and showed you how it is well written or well structured. So again, a similar exercise today, but other than abstract, we have a few more things that I want to cover to show you this, how to structure a paper properly. So if you look at this abstract, it starts with blockchain is a distributed immutable technology, a ledger technology, introduced as the enabling mechanism to support something. So like a one-liner description of this topic. Blockchain solutions are currently being proposed to address diverse problems in different domains. So this is like a connecting sentence that is trying to connect blockchain with biomedical domain. This paper presents a scoping review of the scientific literature to map the current research area of blockchain applications in biomedical domain. So this is a very clearly mentioned contribution or the aim of this paper. The goal is to identify biomedical problems. So we are saying now the goal is to identify the problems treated with this technology, the level of maturity of different approaches where this has been used. In here it mentions the methodology that they have used, Prisma. Literature search was conducted August 2018. Selection identified 47 papers. Our findings show that the field is still in the infancy. Only one study reports the real world demonstration and evaluation. Research is greatly focused. So in this abstract, you can see the research or the findings have been explained in some good level of detail. Okay, so next now let's look at this table of contents. So this is from the same paper, and it kind of highlights the different sections within this paper. So it starts off with an introduction. Then within the method section itself, they have kind of covered a lot of things, like the goal of the research question, the protocol, inclusion exclusion criteria, where the sources and the search strategy, how they have selected the sources, synthesis of results, and then so on. The reason I wanted to show this table of contents is to tell you that these are the standard headings that you would need in your paper as well. So try to start thinking about these headings and what is it that you're going to write. And when you refer to some papers like these, which are already published, you can see how they have written these sections and learn from their writing style and imitate their writing style, because that is a way, when you're learning something, this would be like a very good template that you can follow. Then this section here is the section for why is there a need for doing this review paper. So today I mentioned what we are going to cover was the review paper and why we are doing this review paper. So this is kind of a very important section, but in this article, for example, in this article, they have not spent really a large amount of time to describe this, but I will show you in the third section of today's session how we can do this in a better way. But basically what they say is a recent critical review of blockchain applications identified the following major applications: financial services, healthcare, business, and so on. An overview of blockchain potential and example applications in health are presented in recent relevant reviews. So if you look at paper 7 to 9, these are existing systematic review papers which are related to blockchain and healthcare. These include patient information security, patient data access control, health and supply chain management, medical insurance, and so on. So this is giving a background, like what other existing research papers or existing literature reviews have done. Okay, so in this paper, we systematically analyze the state of the art in blockchain applications in biomedical domain as presented in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. So just a few sentences in this section is creating or is showing the need for doing a systematic literature review in blockchain and biomedical domain. So what I feel that this section itself can be bit more elaborate, can be a bit more thorough, and by doing that you are just showing the rigor of your research. So what is it that you could kind of do to make this more to make it more rigorous? So one thing is, you can say, instead of just writing 7 to 9 these papers have done this, you could create a table. Yeah, in that table you would have the first part of the table could be the research article, like a citation, author and year. The second could be the third would be when was this review done and how many years worth of literature was covered. So maybe from 2010 to 2015 or 2012 to 2018 were the papers that were reviewed. The next column could be how many papers were actually reviewed. So it could be in this paper, systematic review 1, there were 100 papers that were reviewed. Other one could be 200, other one could be 50, other one could be 10. So like that. So such a table will give a better or a clear understanding of the existing literature reviews. And by looking at that table, it will give you an idea of what is it that you are going to do different. How is your study different from what is already published? So this is a very important step in doing a literature review. And I copied this section to show how they have covered the process of screening. So we will not go through that today, but the reason I have it here is we will be doing that in the next session. But it's good to have a look, so that once you have seen this, you kind of get yourself familiarized with this activity. So most literature reviews papers will have something of this sort. a table, so not a table, a flow chart that shows the process. All right. So the next bit here is the research questions that this paper is addressing by doing this systematic literature review. So let's look at some of these questions. And the reason I want to talk about these questions is it will also help you to kind of frame your research questions based upon something that you see here, or if any other paper that you find. So what areas have been addressed in current applications of blockchain technology in biomedical domain? So it's a fairly straightforward question. We are going to, when we are searching for research papers, this is one of the things that we are going to look for. Second question is, what is the level of project maturity in blockchain applications in the biomedical domain? So again, so imagine you have downloaded say 50 or 100 papers. You could use those papers and try to find the answers to these questions. What types of biomedical data has been considered in the biomedical applications? And this, so if you look at the question 3, this will be really helpful for researchers who are going to do some empirical studies. Why? Because by looking at the answer to question 3, I can see that if I have to propose a new solution, a new framework, a new algorithm, a new model, or whatever my core innovation is, I have to compare that innovation with something that is already published in the literature. So a paper that kind of addresses this as a research question in a literature review, like in here, I can just refer to that particular section of this paper, which addresses the question 3. So that will tell me that existing literature has used these data sets for running their experiments or doing their simulations. So when I am writing my empirical paper, I can just use those as a starting point, and I can compare my findings with those. So it becomes a very useful resource for researchers. What are the major reasons for using blockchain technology in the biomedical domain? Fairly straightforward question. Which blockchain technology frameworks are used for biomedical applications? So this is the last question is a bit more technical and blockchain oriented. So from a blockchain perspective, there are different ways in which you can implement blockchain solutions. So this is one. So one of the things that you could find by studying this is how many studies are using a particular type of blockchain platform. Okay, so some research questions for you to ponder upon. Start thinking about the research questions that you could make. You can post it in the chat or put it on the community. So start building up your ideas. So once you have done that is the research questions, what we eventually want is to come up with something like a knowledge map. And you can see that here. Yeah. So this knowledge map is kind of showing you in this area of blockchain applications in the biomedical domain, how can we categorize the existing literature. So biomedical data, application related. So you can categorize literature based on in which application area that solution was developed. What technology was used, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Hyperledger Fabric, or so on. What was the reason of using blockchain? So these are the kind of, the answers which you can see, the questions that are raised here. And you can come up with a knowledge map. So this is something that you can follow as well. So if you have a research question, you can, when you're mapping the literature, the map could reflect your research questions. So another way you can, so this is another thing that you can do in a systematic review is come up with tables like these. authors or articles are here, the years in which they're published, the type of article it is, what is the area, what is the maturity. So this depends upon what you're trying to answer in your research or your research questions. Similarly, another question, one of the things that was asked was, why is blockchain used? So that was one question. So you can see the reasons why blockchain was used, which papers used that, what kind of data was recorded, and what technology was used. So depending upon your research questions, it is good to come up with some descriptive, not descriptive, tabulated results to show the evaluation or your research synthesis. Okay, so now I have one question for you, and I'll copy one link. So I want you to spend, say, 5 minutes to think about what is it that you could apply from this study, okay? And post that on the community. I'm sending you the link right now. So the link to the post on the community is here. You can see that. And I'm also copying the link to the open access paper. Okay, so based upon what I covered just now, I can probably take it back to, I think I want you to focus basically on the way abstract was written, the way the literature review part was written, or how the questions were created and the knowledge map. So I want you to think about what is it that you could apply in your paper. Okay, so I'll give you 5 minutes to kind of work on that and share your ideas on the community page. So Inarni has just replied on the post saying that the knowledge map seems very useful for me to apply in the paper. So yeah, I think that's right. I think knowledge map not only helps you to kind of structure your thoughts or your ideas, but it also helps others who want to learn from your the way you have synthesized or categorized the literature. Okay, let's look at, there are a few responses on the community. Kanchan mentions the knowledge map linked with research questions framed is excellent to be incorporated. So you get a like for that. Rani, you also get a like. Diane, what areas of nursing has been addressed? What frameworks have been used to assess clinical skills? What is the level of project maturity? Oh, that's fantastic. I think you have actually come up with the questions itself, Diane. That's great. Biju mentions the way research questions are framed seems to be useful. John mentions or asks, in fact, is scoping review synonymous to systematic review? So, John, to answer your question, scoping review is a type of a systematic literature review. So, yes, you can consider it as a SLR. Okay, just one more minute if you want to respond to this question, and then we'll move on to the next case study. Hina mentions, I would like to use strategies like showing results in a tabulated form. Knowledge map seems good too. Yeah, so I think once you have collected your data, a lot of thing actually depends upon how you convey the results, you know, and this is where different types of maps or designs like these come in very handy. Okay, one last refresh before we move on. Satya mentions, I'm using content analysis. That's good. Cool. Okay, so let's move on. So thank you all for giving your responses. I think it would have helped you to frame, start thinking about your research and research questions, and also how you can represent your results. Gina Tom asks in the chat window how to use and cite published figures and photos. I think you can either mention that it is adopted. If you have changed the figure or the table in some form, you can say adopted and adopted from. So you can then give the citation for that particular paper. And published figures, I think you can just cite. You can cite it as a traditionally you do in a literature review paper. But if some figures, or depend upon where you get the figures from, if they are copyrighted, you may have to request from the copyright owner that is it okay to use your figures or photos in my research paper. It's always better to have that in writing. Okay. All right. So the next case study that I have here is the policies of provision of assistive and welfare technology, a literature review. The title, this is again an open access paper, and you can access through this link. Kanchan Patil asked, do you have any software to create knowledge maps? I think there are many online softwares, Kanchan, that you can use, or if you have access to Microsoft Visio, you could use that as an option as well to kind of start with the design, or you can even do it in Word. That is the easiest way. All right. Again, evaluation of the literature, sorry, evaluation of the abstract. Due to increasing aging population worldwide, humanity is facing global demographic challenges. So the first line itself kind of tells the problem. For many people, their later years are often lived and changed functioning, and with changed functioning and the need for support in daily living activities. So that is kind of giving you the background or the problem for that matter. Assistive technology and welfare technology constitute a practical solution to the demographic challenges. So this is how they think that this could be a solution. So what is the objective? The purpose of this literature review, so it's very clearly stated, the purpose is to identify the policy features. And these are the details of what the policies could be. If you look at the methods, a literature review with a deductive approach using the structure of global cooperation on assistive technology, that is GATE model, was conducted. The data was searched from these databases, and they only selected 9 articles in this paper. Results. The findings are presented according to the structure of 8 domains from the GATE model. So this GATE model that they have used in this study has 8 domains, and then they have used these 9 articles to see or compare it against the 8 domains to see how or where they fit. And these are the names of the models: policy, assessment, procurement, technology, and so on. Conclusion. The review reveals a nascent and growing interest in this area. However, evidence-based decision models and other guidance are lacking. Recent scholarship and policy reforms can form the basis of a stronger guidance to organize complex systems, but further and future research is needed. So that's a good way to kind of conclude the abstract. So when you read the abstract, it is fairly clear of what kind of work they have done, how important it is, how valuable it is, if they have used any theory or a framework in this, and then they have. Okay, now let's look at this need for doing a new literature review. So this paper gives a little bit more information on how you can, on why they are doing this research. To the best of our knowledge, few studies have been conducted in the field of health policies, such as guidance for the provision of AT and WT. Under a welfare system with tax-funded ATWT, reliable and evidence-based processes and models are required. We strive to obtain a deeper understanding of the process in determining, providing and implementing by reviewing the literature in this important yet neglected field. Our study aims to do this. The GATE model proposed by these authors is used in this study as a lens to grasp the area. The GATE model was recognized by WHO after a meeting to increase access to high quality, affordable AT in order to fulfill the obligations of the CRPD. So basically, if you can think of, it consists of 8 key questions or domains. So these are the 8 areas or questions that they want to answer using the 9 papers that are identified in this study. Again, I've copied the methodology section for you to see. Again, this paper also shows the process. They started with 2,000 records and then shortlisted some, and eventually selected 9 articles for review in this section, in this session, in this paper. In this one, they have got a table, and these 8 items are those from the GATE model. Yeah, so GATE model has 8 domains. Those are shown here. And on this side, there are the 9 papers that they have selected in this study. And you can see the areas with a cross is where a cross and a dash. So those areas that are, those papers that cover these topics are shown in using this table. And the results section I want to highlight here is they have picked up each item, so like policy, assessment, procurement, technology, and so on, and they have synthesized the literature and their evaluation of the literature under each heading. So this is also something that you can think of doing in your paper. So if you have so in this case they are using a GATE model, right? But what if you think about the previous example that we used, there was a knowledge map, or there were 5 research questions. So the results could in fact also be the answers to those research questions. Yeah, so instead of policy, assessment, and rights, we could relate to the research questions, and that becomes the heading, and the literature that is synthesized under that heading would be the kind of response or answer to that question. So this just shows those are the different areas. Another thing that this paper did, which in fact I like to do this as well, is come up with a table like this, which lists the authors, or I mean the paper first in the citation format, and depending upon the kind of research you are doing, if the countries are relevant, you can mention those countries, but you need to definitely mention the purpose of your research, or of their research, sorry. What is the purpose of doing this? If there was a specific method that they used, you could mention that. If there was a data set or a population where you interviewed somebody, you can mention them. What was the main finding? And what was the, in this case, if there was a decision theory or model of something like that was used, then you can mention that here. This table is not only important here, but you can imagine you could draw a similar table to show which are the existing literature review papers in your field, in which case this will be a literature review paper, and these headings will change. It could be the purpose or the objective of this research, of this literature review, how many papers were reviewed in this SLR, how many papers, and it could be then when was it conducted, in which year range, and so on. So we will do that in the next session, where I will show you the table, how you can design it, because that is a very interesting way to show this information. Okay, so that was the second case study. I'll give you, I have again a similar question. Let me find the paper for you first. So this is the link to the paper. It's an open access paper. So all of you open that, and I will also find the and this is the link to the community post. So again, a similar question based upon this study. So have a quick look at the paper through that link, open access paper, and see what is it that you would like to incorporate in your paper, and make a few notes. Okay, let's see some responses that we have got for this question, second question. So Hina mentions that the template can be developed to guide the extraction process. Yep, that's very true. Kanchan mentions results are written very nicely, mapped to the gate model. Also, as you mentioned, we can have answer to research questions in the results section. Yeah, I think that is very practical way if you're not using a model to structure your literature review. The knowledge map, in fact, becomes the model that you would use. Diane mentions that the flowchart for inclusion and exclusion helps to identify the most suitable and relevant research articles. So that's very true. And also the appraisal of article provides a summary of research conducted and their findings. That's right. Ramesh mentions, I will check if there is any framework which I can use. Yeah, so I think for every discipline, every area, when you read through your existing literature or even the systematic review papers that are published in your area, I think you will get to know what are the theories that are being used or frameworks that are being used in your discipline. So reading through the existing reviews, I think itself is a very useful exercise. It not only helps you to refine your research, but it kind of also gives you the background information that can help you even structure your research much better. Okay, so I'll close this now, and we can move on to. Okay, so we have got to the next Q&A session for section for this session. So if you have any questions, please do post them on the community, and I'll try to answer them. I have also identified a few more papers for the case study. I will put a links to those papers on the community, so you can then review it in the same way that I did. So break down the paper, because when you read existing review papers thoroughly and understand their structure and understand how they have written or framed their arguments, I think it is a very useful learning exercise. You can learn from these papers much more than just what they have written. A lot of things can be gleaned or picked up from existing papers, and when you read 5, 6, or maybe even 10 different papers, you can kind of start seeing the similarities and also some things that are unique about each paper. So you can, when you start writing your paper, would be good to kind of get all these things together and come up with a really good article based on these things. Okay, so Q&A time. Any questions? Please post them quickly so we can move on to the next session. Oh, so Hina has asked one question, which is interesting. I will take it up here. So the question is, kindly suggest few journals specifically known for publishing literature reviews. Is there any interdisciplinary journal available in your knowledge? So there are many many journals that only publish literature reviews. I can only comment it based on my discipline. So we have IEEE surveys, ACM surveys, which publish journals which only publish really thorough literature review papers. Then we also have renewable. There was one journal, Renewable Energies, I think, which renew. Let me just quickly search it. I can't find that name, but it is a very top journal which publishes survey articles only. So that I will, if you leave this question on the community here, I will find that art journal and post it. But even if others, if you know any other journals, then please do post. I think I'll just make a question here from what you have mentioned. So I'll open it up for anyone. So if you have so if you all know any answer to this question, please help Hina with her query, and I'll also reply to that shortly after the session. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, seems like nobody has any further questions, so I will not wait for 10 minutes. We can move on. Okay, we got one question from Murli. What is the plagiarism percentage for the review paper? I think there should be no plagiarism, in fact. Why would there be a plagiarism in a review paper? Because you're actually synthesizing the literature. So you should not be copying anything as is, unless it is a definition that you have, which you have it in double quotes. Only then, but otherwise there should be very low percentage of plagiarism. I don't see the reason why you should have any at all. Okay, if no further questions, let's move on. I had planned a break, but I don't see, might need a break now because there was quite a bit of work thing. Okay, so we are now starting the section or the third part of today's session, which is on getting you all to start writing. So everyone, if you can open up your Word document and open up Google Scholar, we will start doing some literature search. So these are the 4 tasks that we have to do in the next hour or so. So the first thing that I want you to do is to search for existing literature review articles in your field and list their main objectives. Okay, so I could go. So open up Google Scholar, or if you have access to Web of Science or Scopus or ProQuest, then use that. But otherwise, start off with Google Scholar for this exercise now. So what you need to search is your topic, say if I search blockchain and systematic literature reviews. Okay, it's a very broad keyword that I'm trying to search, but the intention is to find out if there are any systematic review articles. All right, so when I search that, I can see over 10, which means at least there are 100 papers. So even if on the 10th, if I'm on the 10th page, I can still see some papers that are a systematic literature review, a scoping review, a systematic review, a review of blockchain hardware. Literature review, it's not a systematic literature review, this one. A systematic analysis of real world energy blockchain initiatives. So another thing that I could do is use this as a keyword. Oh, sorry. And this is showing those which have the title systematic review or systematic literature review. Okay, so can you all start doing that on your for your specific topic and find out what literature review papers exist in your area. Okay, BB has asked a question which is an interesting question. Is there any software or mechanism to synthesize the literature for extracting findings? So from what I know, there is no such software that can do it automatically. So I'm imagining you are thinking, you download these papers, put it in a system, and it will kind of give you the results. So that is a kind of a literature review software that does the literature review. I am not sure if there is anything like that exists, but it may be a good topic for someone to research on, and to build a software like that. That would be very helpful for researchers like us. Okay, I think there was some issue with my getting the questions. The question seems to be coming up now. So I'll probably take 5 minutes to answer these questions quickly, and then I'll give you time to work on the writing bit. Okay. Henna's question is, can we look for population-specific literature like rural or urban? Yeah, I mean, if your research question, if you're trying to answer that as a research question, or even a comparison of rural versus urban, then you could do that. Swati mentions, so what is Q1, Q2, Q3? Actually, this question from last session. Okay, I will show that now because I mentioned I would do that. So okay, so if you go to this website called as Scimago, SCIMAGO. So basically, this is a journal ranking website, and you can click journal rankings here. and you can select your area. For example, let me just choose, say, computer science. And I can also choose type, which is journals. Okay, so now if you look here, Q1, so the Q1 refers to quartile 1, which means the best journals in a particular discipline. So if you scroll down, all are Q1. Similarly, if you go to second page or third page, you may see Q2. Yeah, so I think there are quite a lot of Q1 articles here, but you can just scroll down further and you will find Q2, Q3, and Q4. So Q1 is the best journals in your discipline. Q2 is one level down. Q3 is another level down. So I would suggest if you are spending a good amount of time to do a very good literature review, aim for a Q1 journal. Okay, and you can see some of these like padlock, these are open access. So if you go to those journals, you may find the relevant, all the papers easy to access there. Okay. Lilani asks, what is the easiest way to look for research gaps in the literature? I think the easiest way to look for the research gaps is to read as many papers as you can and find out, basically come up with a knowledge map, so that will tell you what needs to be done more. Many a times, if it is a good paper, if you refer to the if you refer to the conclusion or the future work section of that paper, that will also give you some idea, because many good papers will mention what is the work that needs to be done. So refer to those topics, those sections. Can we use publish or perish? I have known about this, but I have not actually used it, so I cannot comment on that thing. Okay, so I think I'll leave the other questions for later. So now I want you to search for your papers, existing literature review papers, and start collecting that data. So while you are doing that, I will create a small table which I will show you, and this is how you can start adding your start building the table for literature review. Okay. So the table that you should come up with to show your literature analysis or existing literatures. So these are the papers which are existing literature review papers. Okay, just a sample. By reading the existing literature review, I want to identify what is their main aim or objective. Okay, so let me go back here. And this is my my personal process is when I look for something like this, I will start with the latest year. So since 2020, so I want to see what is the latest work that has been published. So for example, I can take this for now, and I'll put that in here. So instead of this, actually, I should have just used this as an example. So this is the paper published in 2020. And if I look through this abstract, since the publication, Ontology, this literature identifies peer-reviewed literature that seeks to utilize blockchain for cybersecurity and presents a systematic analysis of the most frequently adopted blockchain security applications. And so this is kind of their, I could say this is their objective. Our findings show that, sorry, I don't want the findings actually. Our findings show that the Internet of Things lends itself well to novel blockchain applications, as do other network visualization skills and so on. So what this paper does not mention here is the range of the study as well as the number of papers that are covered. And this is quite typical in computer science related areas where this is not a well-established process. But if I search for some other related other disciplines, I may be able to find that. Okay, in fact, actually, this is doing it here in this section. So the research questions are, what are the latest blockchain applications focused on security? So I can actually go here and put that. How is blockchain used to improve cybersecurity? And what methods are available to do this? So I can then, if you want, I can get rid of this bit. Okay, so this is the objective of the research on cybersecurity. We identified 42 primary studies on blockchain and cybersecurity up to early 2018. So 42 studies up to 2018. Other researchers can use this list. We further select 30 primary studies to meet the criteria we set. These studies can provide, so it is not clear to me by reading this whether it is 72 studies in total or is it 30 from the 42. But if I read it in detail, I will probably get an idea. This is how this paper has searched the keywords. So one thing you can also do, probably not required to be mentioned in the paper, but you can record their keyword strategy as well. Where they have searched these papers from. This was conducted on 30th of April 2018, and it is also useful to mention this date somewhere in your paper because there may be papers that were indexed later on compared to this date. Inclusion exclusion criteria are presented here, so you can see that. So these are the inclusion criteria, these are the exclusion criteria. So if you see here, this paper has not included gray literature such as blogs or government documents. So I think Rodrigo, you are asking about something like this. So if you're still there, this is an example where some journals do not like this thing. Okay, so here it explains the whole process. So if you see here, it says 742 studies were the first result, then reduced to 665, then 72, then 32, and they applied forward and backward snowballing. So you can search what this means, forward and backward snowballing. Many of you might know it as well. So from 32 to 42. So the 42 is the total number of papers that they have used. Okay, so I don't want to go into this bit. Our main intention today is to come up with this table. Okay, so find the paper. What are their objectives? How many, till what range they have studied the papers? How many papers were covered? And findings you may have, you may not. Doesn't really matter, because the reason why we are doing this table is to identify these things. Because if you are going to start your literature review paper, you do not want to address these questions. Yeah, ideally you should not, because a review has already been undertaken. But if you realize that these three questions could be answered in even much better way, or if you think the inclusion or the exclusion criteria used in this paper are different to what you want to use, then it makes sense, because your literature selection will be different and you may find some different results. But it's always good to know what is being done, what has been done, and how you can do something different. Okay. So, okay, let me check the time. 15. Okay. All right. So, if any of you have done this for one paper, can you just copy and paste it in the chat window or on the community, so we all can see, and I can take that as an example and talk about it. So I'll give you, say, 5 minutes to find a paper and come up with these, identify this information from that paper. Okay, so 5 minutes starts now.
Okay, how are you going? Has anyone completed? Okay, take your time, no rush, but just do one paper properly. So once you have done it once, you know that you can easily replicate it for more papers. Hannah, so what we want to do now is find out what is the what the other papers have done. So if your confusion is what is the uniqueness of the article, or simply mention the findings. So at this stage in this table, you want to mention what is their what is their objective or aim of doing that literature review, which can be identified from the research questions that they have mentioned. The findings really don't matter at this stage, but if you want to mention, you can mention that here. However, keep in mind that we don't want to, I mean, just now I just showed it to by doing it copy paste, but you should actually rephrase their findings and mention it in your own words. So, Baby, your question is, can we include empirical studies in our review paper? So a review paper is actually a summary of a review of empirical papers itself. But today or now what we are doing is we are doing a summary of existing review papers in your discipline, in your area, so that we can identify what will be the main objective of your review paper. So to answer your question, your question will be answered in the next session on the coming Sunday, where we will be doing this bit. Okay, there are a couple of questions. I'll take those up now. One is Kalpana is asking, is there any limitation to add the literature detail? Is there any limitation to add the literature detail in this table? Like any restrictions on number of rows? I don't think there is any restriction here, Kalpana. I think what you need to do is don't make it too exhaustive, because we don't want to make a journal. We don't want to make the review of the review papers itself. Our main objective is to build a review of the empirical studies, but we have to cover a sufficient number of papers, and this again will depend upon different disciplines, but anywhere between 8 to 10, I've seen many papers cover that many articles. So that gives a good enough understanding of how much literature or existing SLRs are out there. So yeah, so there is no restriction as such. Another question is, there are differences regarding the information we have to put in the table. Means somewhere the range is not mentioned, etc. Yeah, so many times what may happen is authors do not mention some aspects. For example, sometimes they do not mention how many papers they have reviewed, or they have not mentioned when they selected the paper. So one of the thing is that is not a good sign of a good systematic review paper. If it is a good systematic review paper, all this information should already be there. So if you come across a paper where the information like this is not easily to be found, check the ranking of that journal to see that it is a good ranked journal. And this also brings me to one more point, is one of the inclusion or exclusion criteria could be that you will only select papers from Q1 and Q2 journals. And this may apply for looking for the existing literature review articles as well, because there may be review articles published in Q3 journals, and then you decide, okay, the work that is done or published in that journal is not up to the best standard. There is a lot of loopholes, or is not very thorough or not very rigorous. Then you could take on that as a research question and do a much better job and publish in a much higher ranked journal. So Imran is asking, sir, it's necessary to write literature review, although SLR already literature review. So yes, it is necessary, and it is an important step, because what we want to achieve by doing this exercise is to show that to list what are the existing literature review articles in your space, in your area. We don't want to duplicate the efforts. If there is a really good article that is published in your area, why waste your time to come up with another one? So to avoid that problem, we want to do this study, do this process, and find out what is already out there, and that helps us to carve our research question, which can answer something different, something more interesting. Okay, so how are you guys going? Can you add something on the community so I can see if something, and I can discuss one of the examples? Okay, so there is one paper that has come up. Let me just open that. All right, so this, I guess all of you can see this. Yeah, so this article is sent to me by Hina. So the paper that is identified is a 2017 paper, and the objective is focus on digital developments and rural developments in advanced countries to better understand the potential impact of the coming next generation access revolution. So the time range is September 2013. So Hina, I think this thing could be improved. So this is a range, so it could be from 2013 to, say, if this is published in 2017, so it may be up to 2016. The papers may be from these 3 years. So check that. Number of papers covered 157. That's good. The paper indicates the need to focus upon specific places and communities, bringing together both connectivity and inclusion. So that's good. The findings are good. So Hina, could you just share the link for this paper? So let me quickly open it if it is available, and I can see if there is anything else I would add from there. Kalpana, your question about the difference between a traditional review and a systematic review, I answered it earlier today. So you can check the video from the beginning after the session is complete, and you could find that answer. Okay, so Divakaran has asked a question. If we took the same thing as in the article, what about plagiarism? So yeah, that's right. So I think I just mentioned before that this is not the final version. This is the intermediate step. What we are doing is we are collecting the information. We have not synthesized the information yet. So when we go to that phase, we will rephrase and rewrite the same things in our own words. So that way we will avoid plagiarism. Okay, anybody else wants to share their writing? I can give some feedback. Can we use the same techniques in our PhD thesis literature review? Yes, of course. I mean, this is the best way to do your PhD literature review chapter in your PhD, because it is the most thorough and objective way of reviewing the literature. So definitely you should do it. Okay, Hina has replied it here. Okay, so if this is the paper presents a systematic review of 157 papers. So from the first line itself, I know how many papers are studied here on digital developments and rural developments in advanced countries. It focuses on the general conclusion in order to better understand the potential impact of this. We distinguish 2 major strands of research: connectivity research and inclusion research. So those are the 2 areas. So I can think that these 2 could be some things that you can say this is the distinguishing paper. So these are the 2 main themes or contributions. In the connectivity theme, the conclusion is that. So they're mentioning the conclusion here. Public policies to promote the availability or improvement is here. Okay. General policies in the field neglect specific local needs. The paradox is that rural communities are most in need of improved digital connectivity to compensate for the remoteness, but they are least connected and included. Future research should therefore focus on specific places and communities, combining both connectivity and inclusion issues in order to inform customized policies for poorly connected and digitally excluded rural communities. So this is actually a very good explanation for what, as an example of what kind of future research can be done. So it is very nicely written here. So I think I don't have access to this paper, so I cannot go through it in detail. Yeah, it's not an open access paper. Okay, but I think what you have done is a good start to the write-up. And yeah, so this first step is getting all these multiple tables done, and then synthesizing that in your own words. So then, to avoid plagiarism, we cannot use this as is from the paper, so we will rephrase that in our own words and explain that here. Okay, anybody else has posted anything? Okay, there are a few more papers that have come up, so I'll quickly go through them. So this is a summary done by Biju. Title of the paper is good. I also put a DOI, which is very handy. What are the ecological and livelihood roles? What are the participants? What are the barriers to enhanced economic outcomes? So the questions are quite clear. The range is clear from 2013 to 17. So 14 years paper. Prisma method is used, and they have covered 51 papers. And these are the findings. Okay, so you're spot on, Piju. Great work. And when you start reading literature reviews, keep a close eye on these questions, because this will help you to kind of see what kind of questions you can come up with as well. Okay, let me see. There was another one by Santwana. All right. The study reviews relevant literature and identified 6 herbal products. These which have shown interactions with chemotherapeutic agents in humans. This focus on clinically significant herb-drug interactions should be of interest to the public, including practitioners, researchers, and consumers. Okay, so this objective is clear. What I would suggest is, if this paper has specifically mentioned the research questions, maybe put that as well for your records. Number of papers reviewed are 345. If you have any findings, then you can mention them here. Sometimes the findings are also interesting to help you frame your questions. So for example, sometimes the findings that authors report will give you idea of what else could be the kind of the next logical study that needs to be done. So those ideas can come by reading the findings as well. Okay, Rashinda has mentioned that she's done this paper, but could not mention the could not find the study range or number of papers that they have covered. So like I mentioned earlier, check the quality of the journal from where you have found that. If it is normally good journals would have that information mentioned in their papers. So the aim, urgent research question comprise understanding the mental health effects of social distancing and economic pressure, identify risk and resilience factors, and long-term consequences, but not restrict to child treatment. So the aim is clear. This is not mentioned there. Research is needed to assess the implications of policies enacted to contain the pandemic on mental health. So this seems like a pretty new paper because it is COVID related. 2019 paper. And yeah, one more thing, like what reviewers or would be looking at when you are doing this section of your paper is that you have selected, that you have looked for papers that are fairly recent as well. So having 2020, 2019, 2018 papers in this table actually shows more rigor in your research, because it helps us as reviewers to kind of assess whether this is the latest work that has been done in this area. So the question or objectives here are: what methodologies are employed and how do these contribute to the production of knowledge? What vectors are identified and included? So this question seems a little bit vague to me. I'm not really sure what this one means, but this is fairly clear. Study range, number of papers are 50. So if the study range is not explicitly mentioned in the paper, what you could do is look at these 50 papers from the reference list and see when they are published. So then that way you can identify the range of the papers. It might seem like a daunting task, but yeah, you got to do that. Okay, so I'll take one last one, which is this one from Nunung Suryati. So there's a lot of findings up in this paper. Journal of Computer Assisted Language Learning, published in 2020, so which is very recent. The aim of the study is to examine the trends and main findings of the studies concerning the flipped classroom method in the field of English language teaching. Okay, so that is fairly clear. 43 papers covered. Study range, again, like I mentioned, if it is not explicitly mentioned, look at these 43 papers and find out the range. And there's also another trick that you can use here is as you're going through the papers, start with the lowest year in the reference list. For example, if you look at 2014 or 2013 is the latest, the earliest one, take that one and then look for the next higher one. So you don't have to go through all the 43 articles. You can cut down that that process. So find the lowest one, find the highest one, and then from the lowest one, check whether the lowest one is one of those 43 papers and the highest one is whether one of those 43 papers or not. So that way it will be faster, because in the research paper, other than these papers, like 43 papers in this case, you also have some other papers which are like background, you use in the background or in the methodology, but it is not the actual papers that you're reviewing. So those papers can come in the reference list. So try to ignore those and quickly find out. So once you do it once or twice, you will be kind of get a hang of doing it and in a faster way. Okay, I think we are coming close to the end of the session now for today. What I would want you to do as a work or homework for this week is to finalize this document, this table for literature review evaluation or analysis, and then post it here. All those who have posted their abstract on the community, I have already I have replied to some of you already, and others I will try to reply it over this week. And one more thing is, or if there are any questions, I can take some questions. We still have 5-6 minutes. Okay, Biju mentions, I am unable to find any SLR on my topic, bamboo for rural livelihood. So I think you are in a similar situation like me. When I looked for blockchain and marketing, I could not find any relevant literature in that space. So what I would suggest is find out what is a little bit broader. So if not bamboo for rural livelihood, is there anything else that is used in the rural areas? And there may be a literature review on that. So you could say that specifically on bamboo, there has been no research, no literature review published. However, in a related area, these are some of the reviews that I have come across. Some tips to sort out research questions. I think we will be covering this more in the next session. So I will skip it for the next session. What to do with papers that don't completely fit to our topic, but it partially discusses one aspect or variable of our topic. So if you're asking this from the perspective of finding out if this is a literature review paper that you're referring to, then, and if it has one aspect which is relevant to you, just pick that aspect in the research question and mention that. So we saw many examples. Let's pick one, for example, this one. If there are 4 questions like these, but there is only one that relates to you or to the research that you're thinking, you can mention just that one question. So that shows that there is one paper, at least one paper, that is looking at that particular aspect, but others may not be relevant. And you can even state that in the description. All right, there was one more thing that I wanted to cover today, but probably won't get a chance. But what I will do is I'll put some examples of the things what we do. So once we get this table done, the next thing is to write about the existing literature reviews. Okay, so here you would write that we investigated, or we studied, or we identified 10 papers, 10 SLR papers that broadly fit within the research that we are undertaking. These are shown in table above. What we observe is that a majority of these papers focused on something. They were, and then you can give an example. For example, paper number 12 discussed something. However, it only covered 50 papers, and their inclusion exclusion criteria was not exhaustive, or whatever you find as the drawback of that particular paper. Yeah. Similarly, we noticed paper ABC discussed this in a very great detail. However, they lacked something. Okay, so this is a kind of a description that can go along with the table. Yeah, so once you have this table, you can mention some description like this, and if you read some good papers, you will find this kind of a description that is there after the after that table. So I think that is all for today that I had planned. Yes, so if you have any questions, please post them on the community later. And before you go, if you all can just leave some feedback for me of this session. I have copied the feedback link in the chat window. Okay, so just let me know if today's format was better, or if there is anything else that you would like me to improve in the next session, and I will try my best to do that. All right, if there is nothing more, we can conclude the session. We can conclude today's session now. I hope you can work on this table for this week. So you would have the abstract ready, the introduction section. Actually, I didn't get time to discuss introduction today. I was thinking of doing it, but time just went past too quickly. Let's keep that introduction for another session. I'll try to see if I can accommodate that in the next session. But for this week, if you can do a thorough review of existing literature review papers, study the structure of these papers, and as a submission for this week, you could send me a table like this, and a small description of the literature reviews that you have studied. Okay, if you can also identify, by doing the literature review, if you can identify a gap of what research needs to be done, or you have got an idea or clarity of the theme of your systematic literature review paper, then also mention that. So that will start you on that process of getting some research questions identified. I showed you some examples already today in the 2 case studies, how they have identified the research questions. Easiest way is you could begin with something like that, and the objective of your SLR could be coming up with a knowledge map. Okay, so on that note, I think I will say thank you very much for joining the session. I know for some people it is very early in the morning, and you have made, or in the midnight, and you have still made it. So that really shows your commitment, and I know that you would be the ones who would be successful, those who have attended these sessions, and I'm there for you to guide you in that process. Okay, I think just a few last comments. Hina mentions You're making the SLR task so much easier. Thank you very much. Thanks, Hina. Diane mentions this was great and so much help. Better format as less conversation and more options to work and learn. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. All right, guys, everyone, thanks a lot. Just don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye. See you next week.